I'm Inday, Espina-Varona. I am contributing editor to abs-cbnnews.com, and I also write in-depth and op-ed stories for UCA News, that's the International Catholic Agency. I also have just started to work in a department here in ABS to monitor, to review the news output of integrated news. I'm 53. I was, 19, probably 19, going on 20, 1984. And at the same time, I was also part of a group of journalists who put up an alternative news agency called Cobra Ants. Cobra Ants is correspondents, reporters, broadcasters, and anchors, alternative news service. Alternative news that they would otherwise not get or be too scared to get during that time. So we were the ones who opened local media to alternative views, alternative news sources. And my craft was honed in the real battlefields of martial law in the countryside. Not in Manila, in the countrysides where people were really dying. I was a student activist. I remained an activist even while pursuing journalism. The alternative was the crony press in Metro Manila, and I wasn't interested in working for the crony press. Plus, I wanted to go back to my home province. That's my home province, Negros Occidental, because I felt that the only way news could get into the national and international scene was if alternative journalists worked in the provinces. You need brave people in the provinces so that the news gets noticed by the national and international. If we covered the rebels and we covered the rebels, we had to take special precautions. If we covered church people who were being hunted by the military, we needed to take extra precautions. But did I need to leave my residence? No. We would cover local news, the councils, provincial news. We would cover a lot of conflict because it was a time of conflict. We would cover a lot of rallies because it was a time of a lot of rallies. This was 1984 to 1986, the last 2 years of the Marcos administration. So this was where the parliament of the streets was really in an upswing. So we covered a lot of that. I covered, because I came from Negros, a lot of the sugar industry, which was also a very controversial thing. So practically, I covered an entire island. I wasn't relegated to a safe beat or news-fed press releases. We had to hustle for news, and we hustled hard for it. The Escalante Massacre. This was in 1985. We called it Lakbayan. Okay, it's a long march. So there were 2 points in Negros, south, north. They were going to converge in Bacolod City. So we were in Bacolod City when we get a call that something was going down in Escalante. There was violence. So we arrived there. I didn't cover the actual massacre. I covered the immediate aftermath of the massacre, where the wounded were still being operated on in the hospitals. The dead were sprawled on the ground of the Provincial Constabulary Command. We tried to interview the mayor and had the same machine guns that had been trained on the rallies trained on us, forcing us to back through. We went to the different churches where the survivors were huddled and weeping and crying. And we went to the hospitals to cover the wounded and those who died while undergoing treatment, and the families, the grieving families of those of the casualties. I was too young. I was in grade 2 when he proclaimed martial law. I know the facts secondhand. I know that his term had ended. and then he suspended the writ of habeas corpus. You had Enrile's fake ambush. You had all these things going on, and he declared martial law. In college, we were rallying, we were protesting, we were being arrested for protesting, we were being hunted for organizing. I dropped out. My generation, a lot of students dropped out because we decided this was, this was also at the height. As the protest movement grew stronger, the harassment and the oppression also grew stronger. This was the time when students were dropping out to go underground, to fight the Marcos dictatorship from underground. And my mother would come to us because she was head of pediatrics of the regional hospital. So she knew the impact of the economic crisis during the Marcos dictatorship and knew what it was doing to the children. Oh, we would get threats, we would get threats, especially the Cobra ants because we were alternative. There was a time when we had fishnets across the awning of our apartment building in a hope that anybody throwing a grenade, the fishnet would catch it. There was a time we had sandbags in the entrance to that apartment. We were threatened, and during the local protests that took place during the EDSA People's Power Uprising, several journalists, foreign and locals, had to price me off. The PNP, then the police commander, local commander, who was going to arrest me. He never said why, but he was always after me. So, but we covered. But we tried also to stay safe. We had different patterns of behavior just to make sure. But there was always at the back of our minds the media then was treated as the enemy, and so we were all vulnerable. But then, like other activists, we just kept on pushing in. We weren't particularly brave people because there was an entire country of brave people pushing the envelope. How did it impact my life? I grew up without media. I reached adulthood with a hunger to know the reality firsthand, and also a hunger to be able to announce, to write about that reality. We were always there. I was a stickler for going to the field. We didn't stay in the newsroom. We went out, we interviewed. There were so many instances where we would interview people and mortar barrages were going on all over. If we said human rights violations, we went to the villages. An entire country was rising up. It would have been really shameful if the media did not cover that. When I say that we weren't particularly brave, we actually took courage from the people, not the other way around. The people didn't take courage from the media. The media took courage from what was happening, and that's what made us brave about reporting things. Without the people, we wouldn't have reported anything. All the threats and all the dangers that I faced came from my job as a journalist. Did I see many cases of harassment? Yes. I covered so many sugar workers who were beaten bloody during rallies, who were picked up. I covered a lot of stories about the disappeared, how church workers, priests, nuns, and lay church people were being arrested in the countryside for helping farmers, for helping people. So yeah, I covered a lot of those things. It was a provincial peace and order council kind of briefing. So we were journalists, we covered it. And to our surprise, our organization was being flashed among the enemies of the state, which was really funny because we stood there and we were laughing and we were asking them questions. And like the military also had a poker face, our name was there. So we were facing each other. We were like, so what? And so we just asked them, why is our name there? Why are we on some order of battle? Even as we covered, even as we faced threats, we knew that we had it better than other people who were getting tortured and arrested and killed. They tried to arrest me, but I managed to get away, but other people did. Nery Colmenares, for example, who was just slightly ahead of our generation, he was tortured. I knew a lot of sugar workers I covered who were tortured. So no, my experience was nothing like their experience. I think the Supreme Court made the wrong decision when they talked about looking at the totality of the man. I think the evil in the dictator outweighs any of the good that he did. And I think history speaks for itself. When President Duterte, for example, says that he was a president, he was the president, but he wasn't just not a hero, he was a traitor to his people. He bled his people dry. He attacked his own people. I am totally opposed to it, and I'm one of those journalists who will not be silent, who will say, I abhor and I will continue protesting that decision, both by the Supreme Court and by Duterte. Because justice has yet to be meted out. In the ears of the dictator died unrepentant. And his ears not only are unrepentant, they actually want to fool an entire country into thinking that their father's tyranny was a model of paradise. That should never be let unchallenged. That should always be challenged in every forum, in every venue. I saw what happened up close and personal, and I cannot just allow the Marcoses say, no, it was a great time for democracy. It wasn't. It was dictatorship.